Okay, we know Florida's hot, but there's one advantage to living there besides scoring with hot widows. A certain stretch known as the Treasure Coast. Now that's because treasure literally washes up on the coast from time to time. A family have found over $300,000 worth of gold, just 150 yards offshore. The best part is that there is way more where that came from. Although the thousand Spain sailors who had to drown for that treasure to get there probably don't see it that way. Now, in 1712, Spain had just finished its War of Secession, which meant they were kind of light on funds. Now, luckily, they had yet to loot all the riches from their colonies in the New World. So in 1715, they assembled 11 galleon and galley class ships containing pearls, emeralds, and gold, and silver to transport wealth from Cuba to Spain. It was one of the biggest treasures ever. And then it wasn't. The commanding officer had the stunningly stupid idea of waiting until hurricane season before settling sail from Spain. With the results you can see above, 7 days and thousands of dead sailors later, the fleet had been sunk. To this day, golden goblets and silver plates washes up on the Treasure Coast beaches. Now, the most intriguing part, though, is that of the 11 treasure-filled ships, 4 haven't been located. One of them, the refreshing sounding San Miguel, was lighter than the others, just in case they were hit by a storm. So it's suspected to have survived the carnage and ended up further north, which is important because some estimate that the San Miguel alone could have been carrying as much as 2 billion. So it might be the time to take an early retirement, head to Florida and start hanging out by the beach, just in case a fully intact Spanish ship washes up in front of you. Now, the Dead Sea Scrolls are considered the greatest historical discovery of the past century due to their tremendous value to religion, linguistics, and the important discipline of how to hide shit. So, well, that no one will find it in for about 2,000 years. But more to the point, the scrolls could also be one of the tremendous value to you because one of them actually consists of instructions for how to get rich. Now, 6 years after 2 random nobodies stumbled upon the first Dead Sea Scrolls in Qumran, archaeologists found a strange oxidized copper scroll that was broken into 2 halves, almost like a treasure map waiting to be assembled. Or exactly like a treasure map waiting to be assembled because it turned out the scroll contained a list of 64 locations around Israel where gold and silver were hidden, with an estimated value of $1.2 billion. Okay, for example, item 3 in the funeral shrine. In the third row of stones, 100 gold ingots. Well, shit, that's 100 more gold ingots that were ever seen. Let's go get that. There's just one problem. No one knows what the freaking funeral shrine they're talking about, because instructions just sort of assume that you will be familiar with the 4th century BC Israel. It get pretty maddening. However, none of this explains why no one is taking a sledgehammer to every shrine, staircase, and house in Israel to see if they can get rich. Let's move on. Okay, on July 6, 1907, the Irish crown jewels disappeared from Dublin Castle. The stolen gems were never found, and the crime remains one of Ireland's greatest mysteries. The value today would be close to 20 million, and one of the chief suspects is a relative of famous explorer Ernest Shackleton. The Grandmaster Star was a large pendant made of 400 Brazilian white diamonds arranged in an 8-pointed star with a shamrock of emeralds atop a cross of rubies on blue and mano in the middle. I know, beautiful. The large oval badge was made of 24-karat gold, diamonds, emeralds, and rubies. The collars of 5 knights of the order were also stolen along with the jewels. Now, the gems were kept in Dublin Castle, where they were guarded by the Ulster King of Arms and his staff, as well as 24-hour outdoor patrol of policemen and soldiers. Now, in 1903, a safe room was installed in the castle, but it was only after it was built that it was discovered. The safe, which held the jewels, was too large to fit in the doorway. Because of this, the safe would remain outside the strong room in the library. However, Vickers was rather lax in security. One story has it that after a night of drinking, he handed his keys over to his friends, and the next morning he woke up draped in some country most valuable ornaments. And in May of 1907, Vickers mistakenly left the first key to the safe attached to a key ring with his other office keys. Now, the key was then discovered by a maid who sent them to the chief herald's office, by the way, via mail servant. Now, on the morning of July 6, 1907, a cleaning woman assigned to the Bedford Tower found the door to the safe room standing wide open. The inner security door was bolted, but the keys which was opened the library had been left dangling in the lock. As for the jewels, they have most likely been broken apart and sold as individual pieces. Sold to wealthy collectors probably, or hidden away somewhere that has been long forgotten. Okay, Forrest Fenn $1 million buried treasure that's supposedly in the Rocky Mountains. Now, in 1988, our art dealer / collector Forrest Fenn was diagnosed with kidney cancer and given it about a year to live. Instead of starting a meth lab in his RV, Fenn chose a more rustic path. He decided to give away the gems of his collection, by which we mean literally gems, plus gold nuggets and Chinese jade carvings and pre-Columbian riches. All in all, he was elevating himself of between $1 to $3 million. But since simply giving all that stuff to Children's Hospital or something would have been too boring for him, so Fenn then threw everything in the chest and buried it somewhere in the mountains. And whoever gets it can keep it. So, hopefully no spring supervillains are reading this article. Just saying. Okay, by the time Fenn got around to burying the chest, 20 years had passed and his doctor's prognosis had proven to be slightly off. Good for him now. How do we find this thing? Easy. Just follow the instructions found in Fenn's memoirs. The Thrill of the Chase, which are in the form of cryptic poems straight out of Syria game. It reads in part. On his website, Fenn continues to release more clues for the thousands of avid treasure hunters who follow him, such as the treasure is not in an outhouse, people surnamed Brown were getting pissed, or the treasure is not in a graveyard, dead people too. His second book, Too Far to Walk, even included a pull-out map that narrows it down to the Rocky Mountains. Now, the ambiguity of his clues mixed with the lack of successful searching has led to some to wonder if the treasure really exists, or if it's just some scam to become a famous author, but not a rich one since the book profits goes to charity. The third option is that Fenn, who just seemed to be trying to give people the greatest treasure of all, the thrill of an adventure, which is nice and all, but it can get pretty annoying, so good luck on this search. The Kruger Millions is a hoard of gold reputed to have been hidden in South Africa by or on behalf of President Paul Kruger to avoid it being captured by the British during the Boer War. Now, according to the myth, about 2 million pounds in buried gold and diamonds lie hidden in the Bloud River area in the province of the Mpumalanga. The treasure is said to consist of hidden gold and coins worth more than $500 million in today's terms. Okay, allegedly the treasure was hidden by or for the President Paul Kruger at the end of the South African Boer War. If I mispronounce some of these names, forgive me. I'm terrible with names. Trust me. Anyway, somewhere between 1899 and 1902, Kruger, however, was forced to flee the Pretoria and few days before the British invaded the city in 1900. He died in exile in Switzerland 4 years later, as most of his faithful aides and generals died in the final days of the war. The exact location of his republic wealth has remained a mystery. But then a South African town was under siege after claims that some of the legendary missing millions, gold hidden during the Boer War by the President Paul Kruger, has he fled British troops, have been unearthed on a nearby farm belonging to Mr. Stark, who said that he had been approached by a Zulu family after historians unearthed a statue of Kruger. The family lived and worked on a farm for more than a century, and they showed him Kruger coins they had dug up. They had been selling them one by one to the South African collector just to scrape a living, allegedly. Anywho, the owner of the farm was an elderly Afrikaner who was reclusive and wanted to remain anonymous. He had helped the historians piece together the Boer War battles in the area, but wanted to be left at peace, you see, on his land. So, Mr. Stark said, as far as we can determine, the treasury funds from the Pretoria were divided into 3 batches, one of which came through Armilio. He said the wagons were protected by a large Boer commando which came under attack from British patrol. The wagons, heavily laden with gold, were hidden, probably buried, but the only people who knew the exact location were killed the next day by the British, allegedly. So, good luck on this one too. Now, Confederate Commander Colonel John Singleton Mosby was an amazing fighter during the Civil War. He and his men were known as the Mosby Raiders for the lightning-quick raids of Union camps and their ability to elude the Union Army by blending in with the local townspeople. After one of his many raids, which took place about 75 kilometers south of the Confederate line at the Culpeper, Virginia, Mosby took Union General Edwin Stoggan prisoner, as well as the burlap sack containing $350,000 worth of gold, silver, and family heirlooms. It's amazing. These people always travel with all of this gold and silver. I mean, it was just so easily grasped to have back in those days. Amazing. Moving on. The problem was Mosby had also captured 42 other men during the raid and had to take them back through Union territory across the Confederate line, following a route that parallels today as US 211. Mosby Raiders traveled south until they ran into a large contingency of Union soldiers. And willing to part with his treasure, Mosby instructed his men to bury the treasure between 2 large pine trees in case of battle. Now, Mosby marked the trees with his knife, and the raiders headed back along the route and across the Confederate line without any trouble from the Union. Unfortunately for Mosby, when he sent back 7 of his most trusted men, they were all caught and hanged, and Mosby never returned for his treasure. So, good luck on this one, because there's no telling how the area look right now. But judging from this, it has never been found.